for Monday, July the 10th. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad absent. Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke absent. Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Could you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item we have on our agenda tonight is a presentation, and I'd like to call up, if I could please call up Jacob Parker, Dylan Russell, Sergeant Terry Fedrick, and Sean Jonas. Could you all please join me? Everybody here? Great. Well, I've asked these gentlemen to please join me tonight because on July the 1st, in the middle of the afternoon, as you know, we had our spirit celebration up at Rec Park that evening. And that afternoon, both Jacob and Dylan were traversing the traffic circle and noticed that the flags that were set out as decoration for that event that evening, one of them was down and laying on the ground. And I know that one of them said that it was a crime to see the flag desecrated like that. They stopped, they picked it up off the ground, and they sought assistance. And now while they were figuring out how to get somebody there to help with the flag, Sergeant Fedrick drove up on the scene, asked what they were up to and what they needed. At that point, they said, well, they'd found it, told the story. He said, let me run and get help. And that's when Sean came around, and they were able to get the flag put back in place, zip tied it back to the pole, and really kind of, I want to say, save the day, so to speak, because while young people like this don't necessarily pay that much attention to the level of patriotism that many of us veterans appreciate our country for, these guys did, and I'm really proud of them. As a veteran, as a former police officer, I know the importance of the flag and what it represents, and these gentlemen do too. And for that, we wanted to thank them in front of the camera tonight, and I want to thank them personally as mayor for your wonderful time that you took to stop and put the flag back in place as it was supposed to be. And for that, I don't have a key to the city, but I do have a coin of the city that I'd like to represent or give to you tonight as a thank you to all of you for helping out in this situation and doing the right thing. And that's what life is really all about, and that's what becoming an adult is all about, is doing the right thing. And I want to thank you for that. Do you want to say anything about it? No? Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We really do appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is personal appearances. We have none tonight, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make staff report for community development.
Thank you, sir. A couple of items tonight. I always like to start out a staff report and talk about building activity because we're still having a very strong year for new dwelling unit construction within the city. We are still ahead of where we were at last year, which was the best we had done in the previous 10 years. So that's always great news. And along with that, with the amount of building activity going on, there was recently the Mid-America Regional Council did an analysis of some U.S. Census Bureau information that came out in May. What they were looking at were the fastest growing cities within the Kansas City area. And they were looking at over the previous year. And they had two specific categories that they looked at. The first category was dealt with just the increase in population numbers, how much each city gained in population from 2015 to 2016. And the information I'm giving you is based on U.S. Census estimates as of July 1st of 2016, which is the most recent numbers. And Raymore was number 7 in the region. And we were ahead of communities such as Blue Spring and Shawnee. So truly, we were behind the big players, the big communities that you think of. And we were ranked 7th. The second category was in the percent change that a community had from the previous year in population. And again, we were number 7 within the region. The interesting fact about that is we were the only community in the top 7 of both lists. So the difference is when you look at percent change, it's usually smaller communities that have a good year, and so their increase is greater. But we were still number 7 within the region. So I think that's just amazing statistics showing what growth activity we're having within the community. So I wanted to share that with you in case you hadn't seen that report from Mark. And then lastly, just looking at upcoming activity for our Planning Commission. On July 18th, a week from tomorrow evening, they have 2 items. They'll have a public hearing on the proposed 25th Amendment to the Unified Development Code. These are changes that the Commission discussed as part of the annual review of the code. And the second item is a site plan for Discover Vision. Discover Vision is looking to build a facility on the undeveloped lot on the north side of 58, just to the west of the Keller Williams real estate building. So they have a beautiful facility they're proposing for that lot. Then on August 1st, our commission will consider a site plan for the Raymore Storage Center. This is a development, Todd Glidewell, who does the American Self-Storage out in the industrial park, had purchased another piece of ground to do additional units. This ground is on 58 Highway between Ramblewood and Falcon Crest. There was an industrial piece of property there. And so he's bringing forth a site plan for the new storage facility there. So those are the items upcoming for the commission agenda, and that concludes staff report.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for Police Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. This evening I'm going to talk about property and evidence. It's a little talked about, often unheralded part of the police department. But those in law enforcement understand that the function of property and evidence maintenance is critical to the operation of any law enforcement agency because of issues such as chain of custody, protection of evidence for criminal prosecution, and the safe return of property and evidence to victims and rightful owners. The Raymore Police Department came into possession of approximately 2,200 pieces of recovered property in 2016, and we're on track to far exceed that in 2017. This includes all manner of property, large and small, and includes but is not limited to items such as those instrumentalities of a crime, things taken from crime scenes, items either held or turned over to the police department for safekeeping, or things that are seized in the course of us doing business. The police department had no policy for disposal of recovered property prior to 2012. Our property and evidence technician, Kathy German, has done a terrific job, but she was literally being crushed under the weight of all of the stuff that comes into the police department on almost a daily basis. We did a study of her position back in 2012, which revealed that she was getting further and further behind because she wasn't able to dedicate an adequate amount of time to property and evidence and the maintenance of that, because she had all sorts of other administrative duties, timekeeping, purchasing, maintaining supplies for the police department, and things like that. And so once we were able to dedicate her full time to that, we conducted rather considerable research on model policies that are available out there and disposal of property, because there are all sorts of laws that impact both seizing of property and obviously disposal of property. Especially with things like criminal laws, EPA regulations, providing public notice, auction rules, and state escheatment. Sometimes property has to be retained forever, like in the case of the property taken in the John Robinson serial homicide case. So we recognize, in the police department that, there are certain things that we're just going to have to hang on to for a long time. But when we look at disposal, we want to figure out ways that we can legally, safely, following all those rules I mentioned, dispose of that property. In most cases, a court order is necessary. And so we're often going before a judge, most often in the county, to make sure that we can dispose of property. And I'll just give you a really quick example of destruction of property in a homicide case that occurred in 2000 in Raymore. And the defendant, or the individual convicted of that crime, died in prison in 2007. So 10 years later, we're asking the court if we can dispose of all the property that had been held for those 10 years as a result of that homicide case. Destruction rules have to be very specific and closely followed, especially with illegal substances, things like drugs, alcohol, and paraphernalia. We have to pay attention to protection of the officers, the technicians, the public, and the environment is critical. I'm sure you all have seen recent news stories, a police officer in Ohio that overdosed on fentanyl because he brushed it off of his uniform following a drug arrest. So we have to be very careful, and again, protecting the environment. We can't flush pills down the toilet. We can't pour alcohol down the drain. So, in that destruction, we have to be very, very careful. But I do have some exciting things for us. Probably nobody else is excited about this but me. Year to date in 2017, we've already disposed of 740 items of recovered property. And when I say disposed, either returned to owner, auctioned off, or otherwise disposed. We've shredded dozens of weapons with the Jackson County Drug Task Force. We use a lot of our community partners in order to do those disposals. 64 different containers of alcohol destroyed based on 27 different offense reports. In June of this year, we auctioned off 60 items, including 13 bicycles, not Councilman Kellogg's. But yours was a nice bike, so we could have actually probably auctioned it.
I can arrange that.
Various pieces of unsaleable jewelry are bid out to local jewelry stores who give us metal content value. So they provide funding back to the city for those items that we're not able to return to an owner. We work with a local business that safely disposes of things like bullets, casing, and CO2 cartridges. Recovered money that we bring in may be held as evidence, deposited in the bank, returned to a rightful owner, or escheated to the state, as I mentioned, if the money is seized. Money tainted with substances such as drugs or fingerprint dye sent to the Federal Reserve for replacement. They give us back money that's not tainted so that we can put it back in the bank. Because again, we don't want anybody handling that money that's tainted. Belton Regional partners with us to dispose of biohazard materials. We do all those money counts and destruction of property with 2 employees, so we're making sure that we're covering that and making sure those counts are all correct. And probably the most exciting news now is the state of Missouri hasn't previously had any type of property and evidence employees association, and our very own Kathy German is working with some folks to try and get a state association started. So we may be at the forefront of getting an association of other folks. They're using our policy in some of their places in the state as a model. So we're excited about that. But I know you've got some just examples, it's always better with pictures. So, some things here that we've recovered over time. And like I said, there are thousands of other things downstairs if anybody's ever interested in a tour. So, anybody has any questions?
Mr. Moorhead.
Well, Chief Zimmerman, it's fantastic. I forgot to file a report on a $20 bill with a slight tear by the 20. Somebody had stolen it. Can I come down afterward and I'll relieve that
You can,
of
sir,
you?
and we'll put you in jail because that's counterfeit. So.
It must be a different 20.
Possibly.
Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a suggestion, then a question. I think it'd be great if we were able to flash these pictures up on a screen so the audience and TV audience could see them also, because there's one in here that I find very interesting. It looks like a blue alligator head. What in the world Can you explain that?
Well,
Probably a yard ornament, I'm sure.
well, and to partake in drugs as well.
Is that what that is?
And of course,
Oh, I'm wondering what I
the red
think.
lamp is also a bong, so, you know,
Is
there's
that
lots of drug
right?
paraphernalia in here as well.
Why, thank you.
Certainly.
Anyone else? Mr. Holman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, outstanding presentation, very interesting. Wanted to let you know, when I come home from work on Mondays, I catch just a little bit of the Channel 9 news. We actually made the news again tonight, the sentencing of the individual from the bank robbery, where you all had the suspect in custody in about 30 minutes, as I recall. That was a blurb, about a 30-second blurb on Channel 9, 6 o'clock news tonight, and they mentioned Raymore Police Department and Raymore, that you all had done a great job in that.
Our people do a great job. I'm very proud.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I wanted to add to that, Jan, because I know, excuse me, Chief, because I know that, I know how hard a job that is to put that policy together. I labored over that for many years myself, and I'm glad to know that it's finally come to fruition, because it was catch as catch can on what we could destroy and get rid of, and it was hard, and I have heard from other police agencies that they're using our policy now as their model policy to also initiate a similar destruction program to keep those rooms in order. And I kudos to you and Kathy as well. I know you guys have put a lot of work into that, and I really do appreciate that from my prior background as well, because it does take a lot of work to get that done in the right way.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else, sir?
Just to inform the council about the items for the upcoming work session on July 17th, next Monday night. There are currently 3 items on the agenda. The boards and commissions appointments from the mayor, discussion on procedure for absences of council members. One of the things that the Charter Commission's work has revealed is that there may need to be a different procedure that is used within the consent agenda at council meetings relative to absences of council members and drawing those to the rest of the council's attention. And the last item would, of course, be charter discussion. The Charter Commission will be meeting, and I'll leave that to commission reports, but the Charter Commission will be meeting and hopefully having a return report for the City Council at next Monday night's work session. And that concludes staff reports, sir.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? No, we'll go ahead and move on to committee reports. And Mr. Moorhead, you want to go ahead and give a report on the charter review?
The Charter Review Commission will be meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in the conference room right next door here. It is open to the public and encourage anybody to come. The main topics will be making sure that the ballot language proposed in the committee report kind of make sure there's no potential discrepancies between them. And there'll be a couple of reconsiderations on some of the issues of, I think we had 25 suggestions. There are a couple that we'll be reviewing and just taking a second look at.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to dispose of that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include item A, City Council minutes for June 26, 2017, and item B, Recreation Park Shade Structure Project acceptance and final payment.
I'll second the motion.
Been a motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda, both items. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? I have 6 yes, 2 absent. Thank you. And now we move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3275 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3275 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, vacating the Cunningham at Creekmore First Plat, a subdivision in the City of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading, Bill 3275?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3275 for the vacation of Cunningham at Creekmore First Plat.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3275. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0, 6, 2 absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3269 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3269 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving the final plat for Cunningham at Creekmore, second plat, lots 69 through 104 in Tract C and F, located in the southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3269?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3269 for the Cunningham at Creekmore second plat.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3269. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3276 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3276 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri amending Section 500.090A, issuance of permits, adopted as part of the building regulations of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3276?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3276 for an amendment to Chapter 500 regarding the building code.
I'll second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3276. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3280 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3280 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Jim's Disposal Service, LLC, for the provision of waste disposal services for the City of Raymore in accordance with the request for proposal submitted for RFP 17-002.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3280?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3280 for an award of contract to the residential waste collection.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3280. Any further discussion? Mr. Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have submitted a few questions for staff to answer. If I may ask for further staff input on this before we vote. They've got a list of questions that I have submitted.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought that's why we had the work session last week. Everybody's good with that.
My understanding of the work session last week was to discuss how the implementation or the rollout of the transition was going to be. The questions that I've submitted don't have to do with that. It has to do with concerns that I've received in emails and communications from constituents that.
Well, it was fairly comprehensive, but Mr. Fearborn, if you'd like to answer those questions that Mr. Kellogg is requesting.
Certainly, sir. Mr. Kellogg did submit some questions to me today that he had, some final questions that he'd received from some of his residents. Most of these were comments. I'll do the comments at the end, sir, as far as I can kind of wrap all of those into just one statement, but just very, very briefly, there was a question on why the city partnered with the city of Belton. Like any bid, you hope that by increasing the number of points of service that are going to be realized by the contractor and or increasing the quantity that you're ordering, common sense would indicate that you're going to get a better price. What we did hear from nearly all of the contractors is, in fact, they bid to an economy of scale. The nice part about it is, while it was a joint bid, it is dual contracts. The contracts are separate. They have, one is not contingent on the other. Belton has already approved their contract. They approved it, they had 2 readings on the same night, so they're already moving forward with the informational phase of this. So we do think that we realized economies of scale. It's a good regional bid. The next question was to explain the no holiday clause that is within the contract. Pretty simple. Just like the service that we are currently getting, holidays are not recognized. In other words, if Christmas falls on a Wednesday or Thursday, just like now, they will be out here picking up. Their drivers actually really like that. It's a very good day for a driver when they can come out on a holiday. And they only use volunteer, just like with WCA, as we currently have, the drivers volunteer for those days. It's not like anybody is pressured to go into that. The next item was what protections are in place within the contract. There are a number of fines that can be assessed on the contractor for non-performance, but the biggest protection that we have is for no reason whatsoever, the city can cancel this contract on 60 days notice. Obviously, we would not do it for no reason whatsoever, so other components of the contract would kick in, and it would be not only a 60-day cancellation, but there would more than likely be extremely hefty fines associated with that to get us through on a transitional contractor in between the periods. The last question, a little bit difficult to answer because the question kind of combines Belton and Raymore, and again, it's two separate contracts, but the question was pretty specific. What if Belton's pickup days are Monday and Tuesday, ours are Wednesday and Thursday? What if something happened and the contractor couldn't pick up Belton on a Tuesday and couldn't pick us up on a Wednesday? There would be kind of an overriding statement on that. If a contractor didn't exist to be down here on 2 consecutive days for 2 different contracts, we might be in a situation where we have a lot bigger problems to worry about than just the trash pickup. But, and I don't mean to say this flippantly, but Belton would be on their own in that situation. I mean, they have a separate contract. Friday is the day that the contractor listed as being a free day, so that if they missed any homes, they could get back down here and do the pickup on that. Honestly, we don't care. We have a contract with them. They're to pick up on Wednesday and Thursday. If they miss homes or they miss an entire day in that, then they better be in here on Friday, and they better have worked out an informational campaign to let our people know. That's why we enter into a contract with them. If they fail that, then the question before kicks in: what are we going to do to them? And we're going to do a lot to them. Those are the questions that were asked specifically. The comment section was why, basically as a summary comment to that, it is, why are you doing this? We're doing this because we want to assure ourselves, like any municipality, that we are getting the best service, that we're reviewing the service that we're getting, and that we are getting the best service for the cheapest price for our citizens. We already have trash service in place. It would be, you never want to rest on an existing contractor or allow an existing contractor to rest on the business for a long time. I was having a conversation with our finance director just last week about our audit services. We get excellent audit services, and it would be really nice to just be able to say, oh my gosh, let's do another year, or let's do another 2-year contract because we're getting this excellent service from them. You have, especially with audit services, you have to go out, you have to look around, and in some cases, like an audit service, even if the existing contractor is low and best, you want to look at it really critically, because there are some relationships that can get too cozy, and there's whole federal laws now that are in place relative to that. So it is a serious thing when you're dealing with contracts that impact our citizens so deeply, that we make sure that we are doing as a city our due diligence, and that's the reason we're here, is to make sure they're getting the best service for the best price. So I hope that answers the comments portion. I have to apologize for Mr. Byrd not being here tonight. I made a comment that he translated as this being done. And so he is not here this evening. That is my bad, not his. In fact, he offered to try to fly down here as quickly as he possibly could to get here for this, but I told him, in light of the fact that the questions are being directed to staff this evening, and because he was here last week for the work session to answer the rest of the questions, don't try to hurt yourself or anybody else by getting down here as quickly as you can. Again, that one is on me. That concludes staff report on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead.
I do have a procedural announcement. I had 2 weeks ago on the 29th, I had one of the non-prevailing vendors contact me and ask about some bid processes. Nothing specific about the award of contract. So it does not require me to recuse myself, but I do have to disclose the communication. Actually, Mr. Zer was actually with me at a function when we had that.
Mr. Gallo.
To dovetail on that, we all received a communications before the interview process even happened. To my knowledge, I know I didn't respond to it, and I believe nobody else did. I filed my concern with the mayor and the city manager at that time when I got that email. But I did not receive an email that you speak of, other than I got one the other night asking of the bid process. So, but he.
Go ahead.
And to kind of, I did not receive an email. I was actually in a function. The phone rang. I answered the phone and kind of got brought into it without my ability to decline the call. So, but they only asked about how bids, what does it mean by lowest best, things like that. So it wasn't related to the bid itself. So.
Thank you, Mr. Moorhead.
Mr. Fearborn, did you have a follow-up?
And I know the council, you all did receive that rather lengthy email from one of the non-prevailing bidders. I will be following up with that particular individual to maybe answer some of his questions, although it was a little bit hard to dig an actual question out of that. But I know he was very concerned about the interview process. He was one of the 3 bidders who we had to call in for clarifications on the bid, and as you may have read, he was a little bit taken aback by the depth of the review that staff was doing on these. So I kind of took that as a compliment that and a reaffirmation of us letting you all know that we had done our due diligence and gone through all the procedures, because actually when he responded to the question that he talked about, I thought he did a pretty good job with the response. It obviously spooked him a little bit. So, but I will be following up with him.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
I have a question of staff, sir. Thank you. Assuming successful passage of second reading tonight, then our trash services with the new contractor would begin January 1st of next year. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And would that be the same for Belton, or are they beginning earlier or later than us, or do you know?
Belton is going to be using the January 1st date. They have some odd things going on with one of their current vendors. I have not had the opportunity yet to talk with Ms. Barton about how that is working itself out, but I know they're having some of their existing vendors, because obviously they're starting for the first time. There's some differences in there for them, but yes, in fact, I believe their contract is set for January 1.
Same day as ours. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
There is none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3277 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3277 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 2017 street preservation project in the amount of $724,135.50, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3277?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3277 for an award of contract for the 2017 street preservation project.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Bill 3277. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Okay, please have the second reading of Bill 3278 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3278 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the mayor and city manager to execute a contract amendment with SFS Architecture for the Recreation Activity Center project in the amount of $22,437, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3278?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3278 for a contract amendment for SFS Architecture.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3278. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3279 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3279 by title only, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City and Parks and Recreation Board guiding the placement and maintenance of arts in the city's parks.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3279?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3279 for a memorandum of understanding guiding the placement of art in city parks.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3279. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
A question of staff, sir. I apologize, I missed this on first reading, but I was looking back through the various boards that voted on this. Arts Commission approved 6-0. We approved 8-0 on first reading. Parks and Rec Board approved 7-1. I was just curious if the dissenting vote gave any particular reason for voting against this?
I'm going to ask Mr. Mustine to come forward on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. There was one vote against it, and during the public comments of the meeting that night, he voiced that he was not against the MOU itself, but merely the verbiage that it needs to be renewed or reviewed before renewal every 2 years, and as opposed to just an automatic renewal and viewed. So ultimately what he was proposing is that every 2 years the contract must be reviewed and voted on again instead of an automatic renewal. But he was not displeased with the language of the MOU itself.
Okay.
Just that one particular portion.
We don't have, did I miss that? We don't have any kind of review process at all when it comes back up?
This particular MOU, it is basically required to come before both boards for review, but there is no actual voting to renew it. It's an automatic renewal, but we do review it every year. It's much like the MOU between the Park Board and the City Council. It does come before you every 2 years, but it is only voted on at your discretion.
Not set as an action, as a specific action item, but could be should the board feel the need to do something different then?
Yes, sir.
Actually, the emphasis the other way around, sir. From absolute requirement for review, but if there are no changes to it, the MOU, there's nothing to vote on.
Understood.
In other words.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. That moves us into new business. The first item is the liquor license application of Mahakali LLC, DBA Cheap Smokes and Liquor, located at 1236, 1240 West Foxwood Drive. This requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask Ms. Warner to make staff report on this item.
Thank you. New owner Mahakali LLC, doing business as Cheap Smokes and Liquors, located at 1236 through 1240 West Foxwood Drive, has filed an application for the 2017-2018 liquor license year. This public hearing has been properly advertised in the Raymore Journal, and the applicant has submitted the necessary application and supporting documents as outlined by the city code. Approval of the license is also contingent on approval from the State of Missouri Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, which already has been received today. Representative Prakash Kumar Patel is in the audience should council have any questions, and is outlined in City Code Section 600.090. Witnesses testifying will be administered an oath of truth. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions of staff? Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeannie, I'll ask you, is this it indicates, but I don't want to assume based on past experiences, new ownership, is this a brand new owner, or is this just a change of a corporation or a name, or is this like me selling my business to Councilman Moorhead and this Mr. Moorhead going forward?
It is a complete change of ownership. Both entities are separate and independent of each other.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, the public hearing is open. I'd ask the applicant if he wishes to address the council at this time. If not, that's your so choosing.
Say a few words.
Sir, please be sworn in by the city clerk.
I do sworn.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Truth, but nothing but truth.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanna
State your
introduce
name and
myself.
address for the record.
Sure, no problem. My name is Prakash Patel. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I currently have a couple other stores, one in Excelsior Springs and one in Liberty, and just moving into Raymore. And,
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is my first time going in meetings, so a little nervous, but I do want to address that we want to take safety first.
Sure.
So, you know, there's a lot of kids out there that drink underage. Been there, done it, so I'm not going to lie. But I do take safety really serious. So we just want to make sure that we're safe in this town.
Thank you,
About
sir.
it.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Mr. Moorhead.
Sir, are you aware that the county also has a liquor license requirement?
Yes, we actually just got it today.
Wonderful,
So-
wonderful.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
The floor is open at this time. If any members of the public would like to address the council on this particular application, please step forward now. There are none. I'll close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the liquor license application for the Mahakali LLC, doing business as Cheap Smokes and Liquor, located at 1236 1240 West Foxwood Drive.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the liquor license application. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. The next item on our agenda is a liquor license application for Paceline KC, LLC, DBA Mod Pizza, located at 1937 West Foxwood Drive. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Ms. Warner to make staff report on this item.
Paceline KC LLC, DBA Mod Pizza, located at 1937 West Foxwood Drive, has filed an application for the 2017-2018 liquor license year. This public hearing has been properly advertised in the Raymore Journal, and the applicant has submitted the necessary application and supporting documents as outlined by City Code. Approval of the city license is contingent on approval from the State of Missouri, the Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, which also has been received today. Representative Jack Palmer is in the audience should council have questions. And again, as outlined in City Code Section 600.090, witnesses testifying will be administered an oath of truth. That concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie. Any questions of staff? If not, the public hearing is open, and I would ask the applicant if he'd wish to address the council at this time. Please be sworn in and state your name and address for the record once you're sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do.
Jack Palmer, 1010 Southeast Willow Ridge Drive, Blue Springs, Missouri. This is our fourth Mod Pizza in the metro area. We have one in...
Also welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one in Olathe, one in Liberty, one in Blue Springs, and this one. It's our 8th as a company, but our 250th as a corporate entity. So we're very excited to be here and be part of the growth of Raymore. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the applicant? Mr. Moorhead.
To be consistent, sir, you are aware that the county also has a liquor license requirement?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Thanks. Also, this gives an opportunity for anyone from the audience that would like to address the council regarding this application. Please step forward. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the liquor license application for Paceline KC LLC, doing business as Mod Pizza, located at 1937 West Foxwood Drive.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to approve this liquor license application. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3282 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3282 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction, Inc. for the 2017 curb project, city project number 17-275-201, in the amount of $414,585, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Kraft to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At a recent council work session, I presented an update to the city's long-term curb replacement program. Following that meeting, we prepared plans and specifications for bidding based on that report. We have received bids and recommend award of the contract to Terry Snelling Construction. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3282?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3282 for an award of contract regarding the 2017 curb project.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3282. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes 6 yes, 2 absent. That concludes new business. We're now under the public comments section. If anyone would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, identify yourself for the record, and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Anyone? Okay. I'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the mayor and council communication. And we'll start on the outside this time. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to again recognize Jacob Parker, Dylan Russell, Sergeant Terry Frederick, and Sean Jonas for their, as far as I'm concerned, their heroic actions that they did rescuing that flag. And I don't mean that jokingly. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I thought it was moving that we gave those gentlemen a standing ovation because they deserved it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking that as seriously as you do, and I know why you do, and I appreciate it. Anytime that there's something like that, I feel we need to recognize that because it's in this day and age, yeah, good stuff. Also, I'd like to welcome the new business owner of Mod Pizza. He just left, and also the new business owner of Cheap Liquor and Smokes. Glad that they are able to make Raymore their place for the business. Other than that, I don't think I have much than that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend?
Also, I'd like to echo to the gentleman this evening, recognizing them for their patriotism and honoring our nation's colors. You know, as also being a veteran, that's very honorable on their part. And also thank Chief for bringing that to the city's attention on the Facebook page and letting us see the positive side of our youth, that there are some out there that do have some excellent attributes about them, so that's outstanding. And again, to the staff, it's outstanding each night. It seems to each council session seems to hear something new about this going on that the staff has done, that someone is looking to utilize as an example with Chief this evening and the plans she's put in place, from Public Works, getting their accreditations. It's always something new that the staff is, the city from Mr. Cataract being number 7, and with the Mid-America Council. It's outstanding that the staff is continuing to do and strive to be better, not just resting on the accolades, but they always seem to find ways to put the city in the forefront, and that's outstanding. As evident, the gentleman uniquely found out very quickly from the contract bid and how detailed the staff is in trying to find and do the best for the city and have the city's interests at heart. And it's outstanding to see that. So, and again, thank you to the staff and the leadership that's by each department to make sure that that happens. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moorhead?
You know, the 4 gentlemen recognized earlier, I think what really stands out to me is in an age where we always have to try to be big and flamboyant and viral, just a little gesture and the fact that they were aware of that, to me, is what really stands out as quality for these 4 gentlemen. I also want to point out some additional credit to our law enforcement. You know, we do a lot of wonderful things. Our city survey always comes back positive and very happy, but every once in a while, some negative things have to be dealt with. And I know we've had a couple recently, and it was fantastic to read how swift, professional, and safe those officers acted. And that can never go without being recognized as well, so I'm very appreciative of that. And then to transition still with that, with law enforcement, it was great to go out to the 4th of July celebration and see officers out there not in uniform, meaning they didn't have to overwhelm our system to get people out there to work, and which is one of the issues that we wanted as far as distribution of staff. And I want to applaud the Parks Department and everyone involved in that. You know, I won't deny that I'm a little bit of a Luddite, and the idea of having some stupid little phone app to make your 4th of July better seemed kind of stupid to me. And I'm the one that ends up with egg on his face because I downloaded the thing and it actually was fantastic. And it actually worked really well. The vendor did an amazing job. The fireworks presentation was fantastic. I love the fact you closed that back parking area for the food trucks and the car show so we didn't have traffic flowing along there. And I got out of there in minutes, and I was slow. So, I mean, parking, everything going in, going out, the food, the music, the band was great. And the increased number clearly, I think, demonstrates why that was a home run. So I just have to recognize, I know it's 10 days later, but you know, it deserves it. So I want to applaud and thank everybody for that. So I thought that was a fantastic thing. So, but like I said, it is hot out there. I know we're in 90-degree weather, so I hope we'll all be continuing safe and wear sunscreen.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to say that I'm glad that we took the time to recognize the 4 gentlemen tonight, Mr. Parker, Mr. Russell, Sergeant Federick, and Mr. Jones. It's great to see that, that we take time to recognize those guys. Also happy to see that we're growing. The Mark report was encouraging. I'd like to thank the staff and Mr. Fearborn for their due diligence on the trash contract. I know they put a lot of time into that, and again, it was good to see that email tonight that just to kind of reflect that you guys did a lot of work on that. So we appreciate that. I also appreciate your explanation tonight and your answer to Mr. Kellogg's, Councilman Kellogg's questions. I had a few concerns from some constituents that were answered in those, so I appreciate that. And I'll close with comping with the fireworks. I had the opportunity to see a neighboring city's fireworks, and they were good, but ours were a lot better. And I got tons and tons of compliments from people all over the city that really enjoyed the fireworks this year. And we're happy to see that they were on a Saturday and that they're going to continue to be on a Saturday. So great job to city staff and the Parks Department for the fireworks this year.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everything's been covered that I had notes actually what I was going to say, and absolutely everything has been covered. I do want to kind of go over back the two young men that recognized that the flag had fallen on the ground. You know, they started that whole process, and it just kind of renews your faith that the younger generation, we always give them a hard time, but they did recognize that, and they started that whole process. And I do think it was neat that you recognized them tonight. And they had a good experience with the police officer, good experience with a Raymore City employee. So I mean, you never know what that will spawn in the future. So I appreciate you doing that. And I'm going to still comment about the Spirit of America celebration. I got volunteered at the last minute to be a judge for the car show again, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And our plan was to go do the car show, go home, rest up a little bit, and then come back for the fireworks. We had such a great place in the shade, and we knew we were going to be able to see the fireworks where we were at, and we thought a good parking spot, that we stayed all day. We absolutely stayed all day for it. And I'm going to age myself a little bit. It reminded me of the 1960s, where everybody was at the park. There weren't the picnic baskets. We had the food trucks. We didn't have those in the 60s. I wish we did. But the Kona Ice people, my goodness, they're going to remember our fireworks celebration. There was a line the whole night. It was just, and just being around the people, that was the best part. And then to see the fireworks display, I'm kind of one of these guys. I've seen one fireworks display. I've seen them all. But that was the best one I've ever seen. I was really impressed. One of the reasons we were right underneath it. So, kudos. I can't even name all the people, Nathan and his staff, Parks and Rec. We had emergency management there. We had the police officers there. We had, I think South Metro had people there. There was a ton of people that worked to put that together. And my whole family was very impressed. And having it not on the 4th was fun too, because we do things on the 4th that doesn't allow us to leave the house. So doing it on a Saturday like that, we were able to go to the park for the first time and see the fireworks display. It was a blast. So I've said enough, but thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to talk about the same topics as everybody else, but take perhaps a little bit different view on a couple of things. First of all, my appreciation, obviously, to Mr. Parker, Mr. Russell, Mr. Jonas, and Sergeant Fedrick. One of the things that I've come to learn, Mr. Fearborn kind of fleshed this out for me. It's something I should have known, but during my time on the council, what is our identity as a city? Well, a big portion of our residents are police officers, retired police officers, firefighters, and a lot of retired and even active duty military because of our proximity to the former Air Force Base and the still military presence up there. So we have the spirit that you exude, sir, is certainly a big part of our identity. And there is a line, you'll all chuckle, a line from a movie. The movie was Remember the Titans, and a confrontation between the linebacker and the team captain, and he talked about how his attitude was bad. And he says, attitude reflects leadership, Captain. I think that's what we saw here tonight with those gentlemen and what they did that day. They reflected the spirit of the rest of our city, and I think it was excellent that we brought them in tonight and we let them know how important that is to us and the 20,000 citizens that are here. So excellent, excellent work there. I would have to jump on the bandwagon. The Spirit of America celebration was outstanding. Mr. Mustine, please pass that on to staff. As you will recall, we had a couple of our colleagues that were a bit concerned that that would not go over well, that change would be negatively impacted by lake traffic and so forth. What I would say is at times we have to be cynical and consider those kinds of things. but we also have to be bold enough to take the step forward and see what the return is, and we certainly saw a great return. As I can tell you, I drove down to the park at about 9 o'clock. All the parking was shut off. After driving around for 30 minutes, we were able to park about 3 blocks away on Preakness, walk down to Madison with the rest of the crowd and watch the fireworks from there. We had a great seat. It worked out fine. I was just amazed at how filled that section of our city was and how pleased people were with the celebration. Outstanding work. Excellent. One thing I want to talk about, excellent staff reports tonight. Chief, I always enjoy your, I call them educational presentations. They really are. We learn so much, and you're such a great teacher. That's fantastic stuff. I need to get Councilman Kellogg on the bandwagon and get more people to tune in so they can watch that. I'm thinking about asking that we rename Mr. Catarette's department to the Current Economic News Good Story Department, because we hear about the increase in homes. We hear about how fast we're growing, and he puts the numbers there that really put that in perspective. Fantastic stuff. It's all stuff that bodes well for the city, and our 20,000 plus citizens are here. Excellent, sir. Excellent. And the last thing I'll leave you with is something not nearly as exciting as the other items, but probably would have been passed over otherwise. We authorized, if you will, we spent about $1.25 million tonight on curb replacement and street preservation. That just goes to show you the value of staff and their desire to continue to take care of this city's infrastructure in the best way possible, and the desire of this body to give them the tools and the approval to do that. That's the kind of stuff we don't think about the condition of the street until we hit the pothole in it, or the fact that we don't have a sidewalk when we're walking across there until it's not there. This is good stuff. It's stuff that doesn't make the front page of the news, but it's important to people. And I think that's something we need to remember going forward. Excellent job to all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to have to start going first. You know, not to even try to trump what other folks have said here about these 2 young men and what they did. You know, it really did. It was very touching when I first saw the post on that. And obviously, I wasn't the only one, because we've had almost 42,000 likes on that particular post. So it's touched a lot of other people in a positive manner. And I think, you know, quietly, we're an extremely patriotic community. As Mr. Holman reiterated, we've got a lot of first responders and former military and present active duty members living in our community, and I think it just goes to the kind of atmosphere that we've created for our community, and why they live here and why they love living here. The part about the growth is exciting, Jim. That's pretty cool. 7th in both of those categories in the top 10. When you think about all the communities the Mid-America Regional Council encompasses, we should really be patting ourselves on the back because we've done a great job of promoting this community, and we've got good people up here representing their people in their communities, and that's always that's been the best part about being mayor, is we've got such a great team that I'm working with on this, not just the group up here at the dais, but the staff that I get to work with as well. It's really fun. I was just telling Mr. Fearborn out there in the foyer that people ask me, why did you want to do that after spending over 40 years in public service? And I said, well, 1, I like helping people, and 2, it's fun. And we continue to do that as a team every day of the week, every week of the year, and it's that's what makes this job very worthwhile. With regard to the Spirit of America celebration, I want to thank Parks and Rec. I can't top what everybody else has said. It was totally awesome, and I want to thank Mr. Barber and Mr. Holman's boys. They came out and helped judge the car contest. Former Mayor Kirchhoff and his wife Renee were out there today also helping with the car show, and that was a lot of fun. The band was great, the food was good, the people were having fun, you could tell. It was just a great evening, and shows how smart we are, having seen that the best day of the week to fire fireworks was that day and not July the 4th, which kind of put the damper on some other community events. But it really worked out great, and I want to, again, congratulate Nathan and his team and the Parks Board for moving forward with that and presenting it to us to go in that way. So anyway, it's been a fun night, great presentations, great all around, and with that, I would ask if we need to go into executive session.
We do not, sir.
Do not? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 6 yes, 2 absent. We're adjourned. Thank you.